there's something that should disturb us. This should horrify us. We should be shocked by this. And it's the fact that somehow we can hear the most startling of all news that there is, that the eternal God, that he incarnated himself through his Son as a man, he offered himself as a sacrifice for our sin, that we can hear that message and we can feel nothing. We can be numb to it. We all know the phrase, familiarity breeds contempt. And it's true. And it's true spiritually, that we can hear the gospel so many times that over time we lose that sense of being arrested and stopped in our tracks by these truths that are utterly astounding. Now, that leads to a question. How do you recover a sense of wonder? How do you reach the place of being astounded afresh at something you have heard a lot of times before? And friends, that's why we need these hymns that we're looking at. What a lot of hymns do is they take us to a fresh perspective. They lead us to a perch we've not looked from before. And so we're looking at the same truth, but we're seeing it from a different angle. And because of that difference, all of a sudden the heart is surprised. And we can be astounded again and silenced and taken to that place of worship at truths that we know and that we've heard many times before. Now, this particular hymn we're going to look at, there's two things you need to know about it. The first is that it's structured a little bit like a joke. Not in the sense that it's funny, but if you think about a joke, what a joke does is it paints a scene. It gives you a setting and some information. And then all of a sudden it hits you with a punchline that you're not expecting. And that's where the humor is. Now, this hymn is similar in that it's going to paint a scene. And it's going to hit you with a punchline. But the punchline is not going to make you laugh. It's going to cut you to your knees. And it's going to take you to that place of wonder and of gratitude and of worship. Now, the other thing you need to know is that this hymn is very much based on Proverbs 8. And so if you don't know that Proverbs, let me encourage you to pause the video, open up a Bible, and read Proverbs chapter 8. What you'll find there is Proverbs 8 is very much about the creation of the world, but the way God created through his wisdom. And from early on, Christians have always identified the wisdom of God as the Son of God, incarnated as the man Jesus. And you need to know that, and you need to know something of that proverb to hear all the echoes of that proverb in this particular hymn. Now let's go ahead, let's go to the hymn, and let's work through it. Ere God had built the mountains, or raised the fruitful hills, before he filled the fountains that feed the running rills, in me from everlasting the wonderful I am, found pleasures never wasting, and wisdom is my name. Now, what this hymn does, it starts with this picture that before God had done anything, from all of eternity, that there was joy, there was delight between the Father and the Son identified as wisdom. That there was nothing lacking in this relationship. It's not like God needed something and it was out of that need he created. Rather, he found pleasures never wasting in the triune God himself within the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Now the next stanza, it moves us into creation. When like a tent to dwell in, he spread the skies abroad and swathed about the swelling of ocean's mighty flood. He wrought by weight and measure, and I was with him then, myself the Father's pleasure, and mine the sons of men. What this stanza does is it gives you that picture of just the overflow of God's goodness, that he creates the world like a tent to dwell in. You know, he's creating the oceans. He's doing everything according by order, by weight, by measure. And he's doing it in community, the Father, the Son, in one joint work. Now, what's so interesting is the way that the Son is identified as the Father's pleasure, but this is the first little element of surprise. And this is coming right out of Proverbs chapter 8, verse 31, that in the midst of all of that creation, that God finds special delight in one object. And that special delight is in humankind, in what's identified as the sons of men. You've got to ask that question. Why? Amidst all of the beauty, amidst all that's created, why would God have this special love for us? Now it's going to get more surprising as we move into the third stanza. Thus wisdom's words discover thy glory in thy grace, thou everlasting lover of our unworthy race. Thy gracious eyes surveyed us ere stars were seen above. In wisdom thou hast made us, and died for us in love. Now this is where we begin to get some tension. In any good film, any good movie, there's always a tension that begins to emerge in the midst of the story. And here's where we get that tension. The tension comes in that on the one hand, that God is the everlasting lover. He's loved humankind from before the creation of the world, and yet we are what's called an unworthy race. God, his gracious eye, it saw us before the stars were made. He made us in wisdom, but here's the element, the tension. He died for us in love. And already you're asking this question, why would the one who created, and even before creation had perfect bliss and joy, why would he take special delight in something that required death, and death for his own son? And this is where we get to this final stanza and where we get the punchline. And couldst thou be delighted with creatures such as we, who when we saw thee slighted and nailed thee to a tree, unfathomable wonder and mystery divine, the voice that speaks in thunder says, Sinner, I am thine. Now this is this question that as you're hearing all of this, the heart has got to ask, how could God be delighted with creatures who when we saw him, the wise, the good, the loving God, when we see him walking in his creation, we slight him, we insult him, and then we nail him to a tree? That's our response. What do you do if you're the eternal God and your creature offends and insults you in that way? Don't you crush him? Don't you cast him into the abyss? No, the unfathomable wonder, literally the wonder that you can't touch bottom of, the mystery divine, is that the voice that speaks in thunder, and friends, that's a quotation from Psalm 29, verse 3. The voice that speaks in thunder, the God of majesty, who's able to roar like a lion. He can sound like the thunder, but what does he say to us? Sinner, I am thine. That even after we've nailed him to a tree, he comes back and offers us that invitation of his love, that invitation of his pardon, and says, I've done this for you. Now, friends, let me ask you a question. If you sit with this hymn, will it not arrest you? Will it not stop you in your tracks? Will it not silence you and take you to that place of gratitude and wonder? How could the God who had eternal joy, who created all of creation with all of its beauty, how could he have a special love for unworthy creatures like us, who are the cause of the death of his son? And how can his mercy be so great that even after we've nailed his son to a cross, that he comes back to us with that invitation of his love? How can we contemplate such truth and not be taken to a place of worship? Friends, use this hymn as a spiritual workout to warm your heart and inspire that sense of wonder, surprise, and appreciation at the love of your God.